Mr. Speaker, I rise this afternoon to make my contribution to the bill before this Honourable House, shortly entitled the Appropriation 2021 Bill 2020. And this is a bill to provide for services, for the services of St. Christopher and Nevis for financial year commencing on the 1st of January 2021 and ending 31st December 2021. Mr. Speaker, as I rise to make my contribution this afternoon, permit me to just go back a little. And I say that because the member before me would have actually, in her introduction, indicated that she has made history. Well, I am also a part of history, Mr. Speaker, in that since 1983, when we gained our independence as a federation, this Honourable House would have seen a representative from the NRP since then until June 5th of this year. So that would have been just about 37 years. At least September 19th would have made 37 years. But let me call it 37 years. So since then we've had a representative from the NRP. So history was made on the 5th of June when the people of Nevis 11 decided it was time to turn a new page, go into a new direction and bring about and usher in a new representative with a new and fresh set of ideas to chart the way forward for this federation. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to be a part of this Honourable House. And some out there may be saying that there's no need for us to be here, meaning myself, the member for Nevis 9 and the member for Nevis 10, because what? We cannot be in two houses as they claim. And in my opinion, that is the most foolish of arguments that you can make. Here's why. I am so happy that I am at the table making a contribution on behalf of the people of Nevis. I cannot sit in St. James somewhere and make a contribution here this afternoon. I cannot sit in St. Thomas's somewhere and make a contribution in the federal cabinet that is going to transform the lives and livelihood of all people in Nevis 11, in Nevis, and by extension the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that argument I put to rest and put to bed. Because here I am this afternoon making my maiden presentation in this federal house as the new Minister of Agriculture. And I'll say this to you, Mr. Speaker, since I have been given this particular position by the esteemed leader of this cabinet, the member for St. Christopher 7 and Prime Minister, I believe I've made a contribution thus far to the direction of agriculture in the Federation. There's a lot to be accomplished, Mr. Speaker. I am just getting started. Over the past 7 months thereabout, we have been planning and strategizing so as to roll out our programs in 2021. And I am so confident that we will be able to bring about that new sense of purpose in agriculture based on what we have done so far, that I say to all of the naysayers out there that you have to be here in order to make a contribution. So I'm happy to be here. And I feel good to be here, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker. And I do believe over the next 5 years, my exploits as the Minister of Agriculture will be felt throughout the length and breadth of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, as I begin my presentation, I want to commend the mover of the bill and to give my fullest support to its content. Now, it's been presented to us under the theme, Fortitude During the Pandemic, Resilience, Recovery, and Transformation. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, this budget captures the realities of the tough circumstances that we have had to grapple with over the last 9 months. Mr. Speaker, the theme under which this budget is presented is forward thinking, in my opinion. It is practical as we continue to deal with the fallout from COVID-19. And Mr. Speaker, you'll hear a lot about COVID-19. Some people seem to believe that COVID-19 doesn't exist. And irrespective of what, don't say anything about COVID-19 because it does not exist in their opinion. But of course, we have had to face the harsh realities. And that is why we are speaking so much and speaking consistent to these situations that we are confronted with at this point in time. Mr. Speaker, it is an established fact that economies throughout the world have been decimated with the onset of COVID-19. This pandemic is different to any other natural disasters we've had to deal with. Of course, we have dealt with hurricanes before. Hurricanes will affect and impact a certain region, a particular country, or a particular space. But COVID-19 is a global pandemic. It's not saying it's a Nevis alone. It is affecting America. It is affecting Europe. It is affecting Asia. It is affecting the entire world, Mr. Speaker. Every country is talking about the same thing. The resulting effect of COVID-19 is the same everywhere you go. Healthcare have been under pressure. Economies have been decimated. I can go on and tell you about the harsh realities of COVID-19. So we cannot come here and present a budget void of that reality, Mr. Speaker. If I were to go back as well, Mr. Speaker, you can talk about 2008, You had a financial crisis. It as harsh as it was, it cannot be compared to COVID-19. We were able to recover in a particular period of time. Right now, as you look at COVID-19, you're hearing about another wave. It therefore means that we have to brace ourselves for what is to come in the very near future. And as such, this budget was presented in that type of context and those circumstances and realities that we'll have to face. Mr. President, I want to say to you that even our family life, the way we live, our social life, you hear that Carnival has been cancelled. Not only here, all over the place. You hear about sporting activities being curtailed. All of those social events that we have grown accustomed to, and we are party people here in the Federation, We like to fet and frolic. Nothing is wrong with that. Because the circumstances prior to COVID-19 would have dictated that we are living the life. We were living the life, Mr. President. Even the people we depended on, tourists, the tourism sector, 2 boats are down there, but they didn't bring anyone. They didn't bring any tourists. They look good there, yes. And you have high expectation, but no one came because of COVID-19. So when you come to this parliament as an opposition and start talking about the budget that we have presented, I have said it in our parliament in Nevis, man, the opposition should come with a budget. Tell us this is the budget that we are presenting to you as an alternative to what we have presented. Then I would say that you are serious opposition if you bring an alternative. You do the work, you sit down, crunch the numbers and come here and say, these are the numbers. But if you're going to criticize the budget without an alternative, then I can't take you serious as an opposition. A serious opposition will come and say, we went home, studied this thing, and here is our alternative. But we didn't get that today. We didn't get it today. But I want to commend, like I said, as I see the member for St. Christopher 7 come back to his seats, I want to commend you, sir. Because your steady hand of leadership has certainly guided us through some turbulent waters. But it's not over yet. And of course, that is why this budget was presented the way that it has been presented. Mr. President, I want to say to you, I said, Mr. President, every time I say that, correct me, okay? Because remember, it can either be Mr. President or Mr. Speaker in my case. Mr. Speaker, sorry. I want to say to you.
I remember, permit me to interject here. I used to be standing in that very same position many years ago, and I had the same problem.
Yeah, the same problem. So I'm not the first, and I probably won't be the last either. But you understand.
Yes.
But if you want to correct me, please do. But I'll try my best to stick to Mr. Speaker and give the respect accordingly. Mr. Speaker, yesterday when the mover of the bill spoke, he gave an example of a lady who is about 102 or 103 years old. 105. So the last pandemic was in 1918. So that represents what? About 102 years. So she might be the only person who may have had some exposure to that particular pandemic. With toddler's memory, yes. I believe that toddler's memory, you're right, colleague. But I bring that example up, Mr. Speaker, because no other prime minister, no other premier, no other leader of whether it was before statehood, before independence, during independence, have had to deal with such a circumstance. And that is why I said I have to commend the mover of the bill. But here's the interesting thing, Mr. Speaker. We are small. St. Kitts and Nevis is small compared. Very small. But most of the challenges we've had to face in this federation and in these small territories, and that situation or adverse situation that we created, Mr. Speaker. I can speak of climate change, for example. You've heard about climate change. As far as I'm concerned, that is a fallout from some of the irresponsible behavior in the larger countries. Countries such as China, the great United States, some of those European countries. But you know what? That fallout has to be dealt with by us. We have to deal with it. The same thing with this pandemic, COVID-19, where we hear it started in Wuhan or somewhere. I don't know about that, but the fact is, it's here. And we have to come up with plans and programs and ways and means to deal with it. It's just a reality. When you're given a mandate as a government to look after the affairs of your people, you have to do it. You can't come up with excuses. You can't find none. Because if you start finding excuses, perhaps you wouldn't last 5 years in a term. So we have to come up with all of the necessary plans and programs to counter these difficulties. But not only that, the pandemic is not the only thing we're dealing with. You heard the move of the bill talk about our financial services sector. All that they're tightening the screws on us, Mr. Speaker. That's another challenge we're dealing with. So when you have, as the member for St. Christopher 5 said, we don't have any natural resources. Our natural resources are our people. We can talk about sea, sun, and sand, yes. Those are natural resources, yes. But when it comes to natural resources that are going to create that kind of financial return, like oil and gold and bauxite, those minerals that you can dig out of the earth and start to sell, we don't have that. But we have to deal with the realities where the money is going to come from. So, we have presented this budget with that forward thinking as to how we are going to deal with these circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I said before that I am the new Minister of Agriculture. I'll spend some time on agriculture. But before I go into my presentation on agriculture, let me say this. In June of this year, when I was given this particular mandate to manage agriculture, one of the things I said to my permanent secretary then, we're going to set the reset button on agriculture in the Federation. When you press a reset button, whether you want to say you start over, you have new circumstances. So we have set the reset button. Mr. President, what we sought to do is to reach out to our farmers, our stakeholders. We extended our hands of friendship and said, we're going to do things differently. We want to work together. We want to work harmoniously because what? We need them. Just as they need us, we need them. We need all of our stakeholders on board because that's the only way you're going to have success in agriculture. And that is what we did. We are better together, Mr. Speaker. Together we are better. So I'm saying to our farmers out there, this administration, we have your back. And we want you to have our back as well because we are better together. And that is what we did in June of this year. And I felt a change. I felt that difference, and I want to say to our farmers once again, this administration will put the necessary resources behind you, put it out there for you to utilize so that you can ply your trade and make this sector much stronger than it is. So, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to provide you today in this honorable house an overview of the work program of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources. I am humbled to serve, Mr. Speaker, the people of the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis at this level. And I can assure you that we will deliver and make good on our commitment that we have, I will articulate, through a number of initiatives and programs as we go along. Mr. Speaker, someone gave me this line, and I believe it's the mighty Larry Hobson who said, COVID taught us a lesson. I think that's a song in this Sugar Mash 49. He didn't get to the finals though, but that's okay. He has a song, Larry Hobson, I believe he is. COVID taught us a lesson. If I'm wrong, someone will correct me on the streets, I believe. We have all learned a lesson, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my commitment is to put agriculture at the forefront of diversification and development. We are committed to what needs to be done to resuscitate the sector and to achieve a real and meaningful turnaround in the sector above and beyond the past. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me say at this point in time that this administration, on the onset of COVID-19, would have introduced a $120 million stimulus package. That is the largest that I've heard in the region. It is significant, Mr. Speaker. But let me speak specifically to the $10 million that was earmarked for agriculture. And I want to say as well, keep this in mind, on top of the budgeted amount for 2021, we have an additional $5 million which will be allocated to agriculture and the development of agriculture in this federation. Mr. Speaker, the stimulus money received from the administration was put to work in order to enhance our nation's ability to weather the ongoing impact of COVID-19. Now, I want to do this, Mr. Speaker. I want to read just a section from the presentation made by the mover of the bill, because this is important to put things into context. Mr. Speaker, this is page 13, speaks to agriculture. Bullet point number 24. And it says, Mr. Speaker, let me put on my glasses for a bit. It says, Mr. Speaker, while we have received assurances that the supply of food from our trade partners is stable, we are mindful that we import an estimated 80% of the food consumed in St. Kitts and Nevis. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, June 2020 Food Outlook Report provides reassurance that, and I quote, a COVID-19 induced global food crisis is not on the horizon, end of quote. Nonetheless, as a net importer of food, our country must be cognizant of the risk associated with this level of reliance on external source markets. Sudden and extreme climatic changes or increases in demand in major economies can reduce our access to food. As a responsible government, we will continue to monitor and assess this situation and strive to reduce our reliance on suppliers of food outside of the Federation. My government remains committed to accelerating the pace of transformation in the agricultural sector in an effort to improve food and nutrition security within the Federation. I continue, Mr. Speaker. While we recognize that the sector will not be transformed overnight, we are determined to achieve the 25% reduction in our food import bill within the next 3 years. Our efforts would be guided by the National Agriculture Plan of Action, which was developed by the Ministry of Agriculture with input from farmers and other key stakeholders. We have decided that priority would be given to cultivation of crops that will be ready for market within 3 to 5 months. Approximately $6.5 million of the additional $10 million provided to the sector via the COVID-19 economic stimulus package facilitated the purchase of inputs for land preparation, fencing, fertilizers, and other supplies at a little or no cost to farmers. Approximately 25 acres have been cultivated, and the vegetables that were reaped were more than adequate to supply all local supermarkets. The fact that our farmers were able to produce these crops in excess of our local consumption support the view that there is potential for agro-processing activities and export of certain agriculture produce to neighboring markets. It is anticipated that produce from these crops would be readily available to be included in our Christmas meals. I encourage everyone to use this opportunity to buy and eat local. I just thought I'll put that in here, Mr. Speaker, because it speaks to what this stimulus package would have produced for us. I'm going to give you some numbers, Mr. Speaker, as to what would have transpired as a result of this stimulus package of $10 million thereabout. Mr. Speaker, under crop production, for example, farmers were engaged and encouraged to cultivate hard energy-dense foods such as sweet potato, squash, pumpkin, cabbage, melons, watermelon, and sweet peppers. The data from those production would reveal this, Mr. Speaker. Our farmers agreed to plant 3.5 acres of sweet pepper, 2 acres of squash, 1.5 acres of watermelon, and 12 acres of sweet potatoes in the first instance, and this was followed by subsequent planting as the need arose. Over 2,000 trays of the various crops were distributed to farmers, with a combined yield of over 432,000 pounds, or just about 196 metric tons of food. This included, as I said before, sweet peppers, squash, watermelon, sweet potato, and cabbages. Now, in terms of livestock production, in light of COVID-19, the Livestock Division sought to increase the availability of local animal protein, thereby enhancing the nation's food security strategy. The aim was to increase meat and egg production and stimulate overall production of livestock. We provided material to assist farmers in preparing their livestock facilities. In addition, feed, medicine, minerals, and vitamins were distributed. In fact, Mr. Speaker, synchronization drugs to bring animals to heat. To heat. Yeah, well, this is a farmer, but sometimes you see animal running around, you say the animal is in heat. We all know what that means. So synchronization drugs to bring animals to heat were made available to the Department of Agriculture and was administered by the veterinary unit. Mr. Speaker, all feeds were sold at a reduced price of $25 to alleviate farmers' financial strain, thereby expanding farmers' buying power. That is good government, Mr. Speaker. I can go on, Mr. Speaker. A special COVID fund of almost $350,000 was provided to all livestock farmers. This initiative was geared towards expanding poultry, pig, small rooming, and housing. You know where you house your animals. One of the reasons why this was done, Mr. Speaker, is because we've had some serious issues with dog attacks. It is difficult for our farmers to go out and ply their trade. It is difficult for them to go there day after day, nurture their animals, bring them to a certain point in time where they can then sell, and then all of a sudden dog attacks take place and they lose all that investment of time, energy, and resources, Mr. Speaker. So this government determined that we are going to provide the necessary resources in terms of building our material to construct pens and holding facilities for our farmers, animals that is. Mr. President, I can go on further. Containers of livestock fencing wires were imported to assist farmers as well. Most have been distributed, but more to come. The department also acquired much needed equipment to adequately meet the demand for increased slaughtering at the abattoir. If you're asking farmers to tend to their livestock, bring more animal protein to the market in terms of pigs, mutton, even cattle, then of course you have to be able to slaughter and process those meat products to get to the market. Mr. Speaker, moving to the stimulus package in fisheries. Of course, in fisheries and marine resources, this year, due to COVID, we saw a 6% decrease in fish landing compared to the previous year. Now we have the reasons and the rationale for that. Of course, there have been a reduction by 6%, that is, and that is as a result of a reduction in demand as well. Most fishers would not go and fish, for example, for certain fish type when they know they cannot get them sold. So we have seen a reduction there. But however, Mr. Speaker, there was some monies made, and listen to this. Fish landing for reef and demersal fish. Well, let me explain what that is, demersal. These are fish living close to the ocean floor. So you have reef fish living close to the ocean floor. Well, an amount of 368,260 pounds were caught during 2020. This equates to $4,431,070. So that's for 2020, $4,431,070 in 2020. That is significant, Mr. Speaker. In spite of the challenges that we've been facing this year, these were registered for 2020 thus far. In terms of coastal pelagic, Mr. Speaker, fish landing also fell. We had 79,870 pounds, which was valued at $749,520. That is in 2019. So it fell to 57,470 pounds, valued at $493,300, a decrease of $256,220. That's about 28% reduction in the landing of coastal pelagic, Mr. Speaker. But this particular type of fish, or these particular type of fish, are heavily demanded by restaurants, hotels, those type of businesses. And of course, like I said, if you have a reduction in the amount of tourists we are receiving to our shores, of course, these business places have had to close. It will certainly impact this particular sector as well. Mr. President, conchs, for example, just to give you an idea, because we have been providing incentives to our fisher folks. So I want to give the report as it was given to me so that at least we have an idea of the general public what is happening. Conchs, for example, in 2020 amounted to 62,920 pounds, valued at $629,200. This is a 4% reduction over and above 2019. For the same period, which we saw 65,000, let me back up, because that was for, in 2020, 62,000, yes, okay. So in 2019, we had just about 65,450 pounds of conchs, valued at $654,500. So we have seen these decreases, Mr. Speaker, but it is not because people are not plying their trade, but of course, the reductions occurred because of you don't have the necessary market, so persons have had to make adjustments. But I want to encourage our fisher folks to continue plying the trade. Now, lobster, for example, Mr. Speaker, and the reason why I'm bringing up lobster is because this is one of the favorites of our visitors. But I want to say to our local fisher folks, you may not have the market in the restaurants and hotels, but you can create your own markets, you know. I have said to fishermen time and time again, you go out and you fish, and you come back and you depend on someone to buy your fish or your fish products. But you can also go and do your own sale of your product by having your own barbecue stand. You can have your own barbecue grill. You can go and get those same lobsters that you'd have sold for whatever amount per pound. If it is $12, I don't know. But if you take that and then you sell that for $20, you make $8 easily there. And it wouldn't be for a pound, it's one lobster. I don't know how much it would weigh. But I'm trying to put this over this way and tell you, if you were to take your fish, add some banana, add some breadfruit, add other things to it, a pound of fish is $10. But when you put all those ingredients together, you end up with a fish dinner, a fish lunch or whatever for $25. So you make some additional money. Well, I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm hoping that fisher folks out there listening in Nevis, that the Premier love to hear about fish, banana, and your breadfruit, whatever the case might be. So we have to develop that entrepreneurial spirit in the fishing industry. There are monies to be made. People are eating healthy now. Everyone is health conscious. Fish products are being consumed at a higher rate now because everyone is thinking about their diet. Everyone is thinking about living healthy. And let me say this to the general public. A lot of times we criticize prices in the Federation. Of course, in some cases, they're too high. And we're encouraging our fisher folks, our farmers, to be cognizant of that people must eat. And we are encouraging people to eat local. But here's the thing. If we determine that we're not going to buy local, we'll buy foreign products. They might be cheaper, but I'll say this to you and I'll guarantee you this. They may be cheaper now, and you'll spend less now, but in the long run, you'll pay more for your health. And that is the honest truth. Because you don't know what they're putting into these particular products you're consuming. But here in the Federation, here locally, you pass these farms every day. You see the farmers at work. You know exactly what they're doing. And they themselves are consuming what they're growing. So if they're consuming it, I feel confident consuming it as well. So that is why I'm encouraging our fisher folks and our farmers to be cognizant of pricing. Make sure we are offering our people reasonable prices so that they can patronize the local entrepreneur. Mr. Speaker, to further emphasize the impact of COVID-19, in April of this year, we had an 83% in the reduction of fish being caught and landed to our shores. That was during the lockdown time. Remember, we had a lockdown period, and I want to, from these microphones, thank the security forces for eventually working with our farmers, our fisher folks, and granting them the time and the space to go out and ply their trade. Now, post the lockdown, though, we have seen an increase of 12% in the landing of fish caught in our waters. The administration would have earmarked $3 million as support to the fishers, and of course they have utilized that. Now, Mr. Speaker, the $3 million was spent as follows. It was spent on fish pot wire, it was spent on hooks, fishing hooks, line, flares, and other safety gear. We have pretty much utilize most of those funds to this point in time. The only thing that we're waiting on at this point in time, Mr. Speaker, is what we call these braiding fishing line. It is a special line. Takes a long time to manufacture, so we're hoping to get that either by the end of December, or those by the end of December or early January 2021. Now, Mr. Speaker, since all these gear has been provided to our fisher folks, we have on record just about 282 fisher folks who would have benefited in the Federation. 192 in St. Kitts and 90 in Nevis. Now, remember I said before, Mr. Speaker, that I'm glad to be here. Because I'm glad that we were able to at least provide to 90 fisher folks in Nevis some of these same stimulus items that were made available to fisher folks in the Federation. So 90 fisher folks in Nevis would have benefited, and that is good. I applaud that, and more to come, like I said. Mr. Speaker, moving right along. I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, that this COVID-19 pandemic offers an opportunity for us to rethink, reflect refocus, reshape, retool, revolutionize, bring about a renaissance in agriculture and fisheries. And I use all those words, Mr. Speaker, because the sky is the limit when it comes to agriculture and fisheries. And that is why I sound so excited. And the excitement is there in my voice, because I know that if we never did it before, we can do it now. Some may say that agriculture cannot pay. And I've heard it from time to time. But I want to say this to the Nevis, or St. Kitts and Nevis public. There are farmers out there who can boast that farming has paid. Farming has supported them and assisted them in sending their children to school. I know M&T and Billy Thompson up there in Brownhill can say farming has been their way of life for time immemorial. And they have sent their children to school. One is now a doctor. One is in healthcare. I believe the member for Nevis 9 may know all of them better than I do. But I know for sure there is a young chap, their son who just came back, who is a doctor, went to Cuba. And they are saying that money is derived from their farming would have assisted them in sending their children to school. Keith Lee Armstrong right here in St. Kitts, a bona fide farmer, can tell you that farming can pay and has paid. As a matter of fact, I want to give some names, Mr. Speaker, because the reason why I'm doing that is because, and acknowledging these farmers, is because through thick and thin, through all of the difficult times, they have stuck with farming. For example, Mackey Trust, A1 Farm. I mention his name because he's a bona fide farmer, was in the technology sector, and determined that he can make more money in farming, greenhouse farming. I'll speak about greenhouse farming later. Right here in St. Kitts, I don't know his correct name, but Yellow. I'm sure he's listening. Yellow is one of those farmers who is excited about farming. You speak to him, he keeps his records. You go to his farm and he have a book with all of the records, when he administer fertilizer, when he plant, when he harvest, what he's going to do next. So he keeps excellent record. He was our top crop farmer for 2020. I want to commend him, because he is one of those farmers who farmers out there can emulate. And I use him as an example because when we talk about farming cannot pay, he has proven, along with many others, that farming can pay. Elroy Stapleton, a livestock farmer there in Keon, I'm recognizing him because I've gone to their farms, Mr. Speaker. I've gone up to Mansion, I've gone to District 1, District 2, I've gone up and down St. Kitts. And those who haven't seen me yet, you will see me soon. At some point you'll see me. Because I do believe that it's important to go out there, meet with our farmers, give them those reassurances. Mr. Speaker, let us start looking forward, because we have an exciting year 2021 ahead of us. Mr. Speaker, looking forward, it is anticipated that during the year 2021, we will conduct a national agriculture census, adopt policies for the sector, and review the strengthening of its operation and provide an improved enabling environment for all our stakeholders in an effort to enhance the agricultural sector. This strategic objective will deal with the new and revised policies, legislation, and necessary infrastructure required to facilitate the agricultural transformation process. We'll realize in 2021 the establishment of a policy framework and improved coordination across the sector, which will present a new vision for agriculture here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, my ministry will continue to partner with our regional and international agencies, our resident allied institutions, and technical cooperation agencies so as to harness their support in the implementation of our strategic plan and work program. These mutually beneficial partnerships with our regional and international counterparts will seek to enhance the sector, as this is a prerequisite to poverty alleviation, the reduction in the cost of food, and of course, a reduction in our high food import bill. And while I speak about our high food import bill, Mr. Speaker, let me put a scenario before you. I know we have the resources here. We have the land, the labor, we have the incentives that are being given by this administration to produce more. And when I think about a boat, for example, coming from way down south in St. Vincent, passing St. Kitts and Nevis, and even stopping here and offloading agricultural produce, then moving up north to St. Martin and Anguilla and those islands, these products can be as fresh as those produced here, and then put on a boat, and within an hour and a half, we're in Anguilla, we're in St. Martin, fresh products. That is an encouragement for our farmers and the farming community to exert more, to put more into agriculture, because the excess, we are now thinking that we can make some foreign dollars, get some foreign exchange by exporting some of these products. So those boats that are coming from St. Vincent and further south, Dominica and St. Vincent, that is, I want to say to you that we can cut those off. We can do what is necessary. Start to adopt that entrepreneurial spirit and that entrepreneurial thinking. Our farmers have been looked at a certain way in the past, but some of the richest people in America are farmers. They've used technology, they've used all of the necessary resources available to them to improve their trade, and they've been making money and sending goods even here to us. So we know that we are capable, and I know for a fact that our farmers are enthusiastic these days, because, as I said before, the government is playing its part. As a matter of fact, I'll say to you, Mr. Speaker, I'm going off a little bit here, but I can say to you that even in backyard gardening, some may not see that as being an essential part of our daily life here in St. Kitts and Nevis. But it is. Here's why. It must be a good feeling when you have a little plot in the back of your yard, and you can go out there in the morning and pick something fresh. Or you go home in the evening and pick something fresh and take it to your kitchen and prepare a meal for yourself. It must be heartwarming. I will say to you, Mr. Speaker, even the overall feeling that you get to go home and nurture those produce, water your garden, you feel good. As they say, quote unquote, it's a stress reliever too. It can be a stress reliever. So I'm encouraging everyone out there, if you have 5,000 square feet, you have a backyard. No matter what space you have, even if you plant one row of something, it is important. It enhances your overall development as a person or as a people. So, Mr. Speaker, I want persons to look closely at that. Mr. Speaker, we are cognizant that the sector is highly vulnerable to climate change and increased incidence of natural disasters and other extreme weather events. But we will continue to strengthen the agriculture sector's resilience to climate change and natural disasters, reduce its adverse impact on climate change and the environment, and ensure that development is socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. Our investments and efforts are strategically targeted towards increasing agriculture and fisheries contribution to the national economic growth and employment creation, also poverty reduction and national development. Let me touch quickly, Mr. Speaker, on our veterinary division. This is an important sector because that's where our animal health care starts. Mr. Speaker, the veterinary division will provide technical support to the livestock sector with a view to maintaining a healthy livestock population and prevention of the transmission of animal-borne diseases to human. This division will continue to serve and increase its operation and efficiency as an early warning mechanism that will facilitate the prevention of transboundary animal diseases. The veterinary division will ensure the development of an efficient alert system that facilitates the early detection of animal diseases that can cause severe economic impact and public health concerns. This alert system will also ensure fast intervention so as to limit the establishment of these diseases, thus creating an environment in which livestock can thrive in St. Kitts and Nevis. The capacity of the veterinary laboratory diagnostic and food quality control will be highly increased. Mr. Speaker, let me start looking a bit more forward, because there are some things that we have started to do in advance of 2021, and there are, of course, things that will be rolled out. The work program for livestock in 2021 will be as such. This would include: 1, training of livestock farmers in production and financial management. 2, introducing methods for odor control, that is smell of poultry pens. Developing breeding programs for cattle and swine on farms at Bayfords. Now, while I'm at Bayfords, I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, this is an exciting step being taken by the Ministry and Department of Agriculture to revitalize Bayfords. Now, most of us here in this room might be old enough to recall what Bayfords was like. I believe it was closed somewhere around the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So it has been in a state of dormancy for some time. That being said, Mr. Speaker, the challenge is there. But we have now sought to turn Bayfords into what we call a center of excellence. It's actually called Bayfords Livestock Center of Excellence. Now, let me go further and say, this particular area is about 183 acres of land. And we intend to undertake at Bayfords the following. Mr. Speaker, we are starting a program that aimed at promoting food security by increasing livestock production through the implementation of modern and sustainable techniques, with the view of significantly reducing the gap between imported and locally produced meat. This program will see the establishment of a breeding program to maintain and support sustainable improvement in livestock production. Livestock production constitutes a very important component of our agricultural economy, and we will move beyond the direct contribution to our food system by utilizing byproducts such as animal skin and the waste to create fertilizer, etc. Our strategies are to ensure sustainable animal agriculture and to support the need for our food system to be sustainable and resilient. Bayford will have a great influence in shaping livestock contribution to our food security of the future. I will further say that Bayford will contribute to improving animal welfare, maximizing animal health interventions, and the benefits for animals, farmers, and consumers will be there. Our continued work at Bayford will be realized through strategic partnerships. With the aid of our partners and our allied institutions, the business community, livestock farmers, animal health practitioners, and others, we will ensure coordination and collaboration for the advancement of the livestock sector. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased that we have made this particular effort. I will say a few weeks ago, the Governor General would have paid a visit there just to have a look. He had marvelous memories of the past. And I stand here this evening and say, we may not get back to what it once was. But what will happen, and our livestock farmers will be the beneficiaries, is that we will have a robust breeding program undertaken there with the assistance of Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. They have come on board and they have provided us with assistance in our breeding program so that we can make available to our livestock farmers new breeding stocks. And that is what I want to thank the Ross University for their intervention and their assistance. Of course, despite the challenges in various programs that we have had over the past, I can speak positively to this though, Mr. Speaker. Between April to March of this year, 19 female goats from 3 particular farmers were exposed to the boar ram. Now, this is a prolific breed of goat. When those goats mature, the Boer goat that is, you can get up to 360 plus pounds of meat from one goat. 360 plus pounds. It is a prolific, it is bred for meat purposes, Mr. Speaker. Now, during those months, like I said, there were 19 female goats from our three local farmers. A total of 37 kids were born. Only 2 mortality. So it means that there are 35 alive. That is excellent. It's a small percentage. These results are indication of the success of the program and shows the potential for us to increase meat production here in the Federation. I must say, this program has been extended to Nevis as well. And as a result of Ross University and their intervention and their assistance, we've also received 2 Boer goats over on Nevis, and we have started a breeding program there as well, and hopefully all farmers will benefit from that. Mr. Speaker, I believe the mover of the bill would have spoken about a new initiative that we intend to bring about in 2021, and that is the introduction of a broiler industry here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I will say to you, Mr. Speaker, that over the last 4 years we have seen importation of chicken into the Federation amounting to just about $81 million. That is a lot of money in any context, Mr. Speaker. What we have sought to do then, we are saying that if we can cut into that, those importation by even 10%, even 15%, eventually by 20% or even more, it therefore means that the dollars that leave our shores to go to foreign countries, the United States, wherever these chicken come from, if we can keep those dollars here to circulate in our economy, it means then that we'll be providing employment, we'll turn a lot of our young men and young women into entrepreneurs because they'll start their own farms. And I want to encourage persons to come on board, because there is nothing more gratifying than you working hard and see the results of your work. There's a lot of work involved in farming, but the gratification is when you start to collect. You know, they say this thing, chiching. Chiching is money. There's money to be made, Mr. Speaker. And we'll speak more about this as we go along. And I want to say this at this point in time. I do believe that this is a suggestion, and my government will listen, I'm sure. You see these type of workers that we have, Mr. Speaker? I believe it is time for us to move them from the current practices of whether be landscapers or whatever, and make some of them into something more bona fide that can last a lot longer. They'll develop a trade and a business that they can turn to every day. Instead of paying the regular $300 plus, they can start making thousands. But we have to instill that in them. We have to identify those who are serious enough to get on board. Because there's space, there will be space for everyone. As many as we can. And this industry, I do believe, can be one that would ensure that our supermarkets or restaurant or household will be eating a much more healthier product. Mr. Speaker, I don't know, you go to supermarket, you go there with these chicken leg and chicken parts with a lot of fat, and we consume this. I will tell you that we produce some local chicken in Nevis, and they're very lean. They're very lean, Mr. Speaker. So it tells me that some of the products we are getting here in the Federation is not necessarily fit for consumption, even though we do that. I want to think that when we start producing an abundance of chicken in the Federation, I believe that would be to our benefit. And of course, like I said, I just hinted at some way that we can get this program up and going in terms of bringing some of those step workers on board, whether under the ambit of the government or we are making them independent business persons and independent farmers to expand this particular area, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have information overload here now because there's so many good things happening in agriculture. I was given a whole book. But I'm picking out some of the more important things to impart at this point in time. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to you that some of the challenges that we'll try to tackle over the year 2021 as well, in terms of ensuring that we're meeting the requirements of our farmers. We will sit with our farmers. We will give the assurance to our farmers as well that we'll be with them every step of the way in that. One of the things here on the island of St. Kitts is that 80% of the water needed for irrigation is rain-fed. Well, agriculture, let me put it in this context. Agriculture is rain-fed, mostly rain-fed in here in St. Kitts. It is 80% rain-fed. So therefore, we are proposing to work with our farmers to implement strategies such as on-farm water harvesting storage. We're going to repair some of those dams that are currently in a state of disrepair, renovate them so at least farmers in Keon, where there's some difficulty and challenges with water, they can have access to water. We're going to introduce irrigation to those farms that are not right now under irrigation. Research different varieties of crops that are drought resistant, and also those that may be flood prone as well. So we're going to look at various research that we can do, and that can be undertaken to ensure that we are providing those support. Mr. Speaker, we realize that limited rainfall poses a serious threat to food security within the local farming community, because, as I said before, a significant number of our farms are rainfall dependent. Therefore, we will introduce measures to mitigate all this. Mr. Speaker, moving along. You may be, Mr. Speaker, familiar with FOIS. I know the former Minister of Agriculture may be familiar with FOIS Extension Center. We are going to revitalize or reactivate that center as well. And we will provide technical assistance to our farmers in the area to better deliver training, better deliver services to them, to keep farmers current of emerging issues and problems facing the sector. We also will be striving to greatly reduce the importation of selected fruits and vegetables. We will work with our farmers to fully supply local demands for roots and tubers and significantly reduce our import dependency. Okay, I said that before. This is more exciting though, Mr. Speaker. Greenhouse technology, I touched on that before. Let me spend a minute or two on greenhouse technology. I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, if you're familiar with a country such as Israel, very little rainfall produces a significant amount of agricultural products. Why? Greenhouse technology. That technology was introduced in the Federation some years ago. I think it was a brilliant idea. The problem with it is that some persons would have received greenhouses. As soon as they met any challenges, they abandoned the greenhouses. Perhaps the necessary training was not done. Perhaps it was done in an ad hoc way. But we are looking at a new way of doing business, Mr. Speaker. We are seeking to incentivize those greenhouse farmers who are currently in that particular practice. Why I say that is that there are farmers out there who are involved in greenhouse farming, that technology, and they have shown tremendous promise. I mentioned one before, right here in St. Kitts. Many of us are familiar with Montreville Farm. Mr. Samuel Duggins, I believe his name is, and his wife are in prolific greenhouse farming. There are others here on the island of St. Kitts, and there are others on the island of Nevis. This form of agriculture is what we consider to be protected agriculture. And I do believe that is the way of the future. We have seen quite a number of greenhouse farmers who have gone into business, and they're now supplying our local supermarkets with exotic, some real beautiful packaging. Some boast that their products have a month shelf life as against the same imported product. I'll say this to you, in 2021, we'll work with ICA and its local representative, Ms. Sharon Jones. And what we'll be doing, we'll be introducing that technology to our primary schools and our high schools, but we'll start with the primary schools, some of the larger primary schools, and provide them with a small shade house so they can understand the technology and understand what is involved and create that interest. So once they go through their life in school, they can then become entrepreneurs and farmers here in St. Kitts in years to come. We have tried this in Nevis, for example, at the Charleston Primary School. And those products that they plant or grow in the greenhouse are used in their school meals program. It therefore means they're growing what they're eventually eating. And that is what we want to inculcate in our young men and young women. Spend some time, learn the process of farming, feed yourself, and then eventually you can grow and mushroom into something bigger where you can feed the population. That is the thinking we have, Mr. Speaker, and that is what we'll work on in 2021. So by the end of 2021, I'm hoping that I can come here and speak glowingly about the number of schools that are participating and what is the overall benefit and result of our efforts. So that is forward thinking, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Agro Processing, quickly. How much time I have, Mr. Speaker? Am I close to no?
You're stuck on 1 hour.
Okay, good.
So far.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, Agro Processing. Mr. Speaker, our Agro Processing unit holds a bright future and great potential for growth. Currently, the unit produces and sells 47 different products. They are sold to leading supermarkets and to duty-free shops at Port Zante and RLB International Airport. Also to major hotels in St. Kitts and Nevis and some of the more popular tourist sites here in St. Kitts as well. The income from the sale of products provides support to the unit, which helps in its sustainability. The work program for the unit for 2021 includes continued production of existing products for sale to consumers. 3 new products will be added, and they are proposed to be dried stevia leaves. This is a natural sweet leaf with 0 calorie content. The plant will be grown at the Needmas farm and the leaves processed for sale. The Agro Processing unit will also pilot the production of bottled coconut water using locally produced coconuts grown at Needmas farm. Production of a gluten-free bread using locally produced flour made at the unit. Those are some of the things planned for 2021. And during the year as well, we will see the continuation of the upgrade of the Agro Processing unit. It is on the repairs as we speak. We'll also repair the nursery shed at Needmas farm and propagation of exotic plants for the sale to the public, including, as I said before, the stevia plant, dragon fruit, sapodilla, etc., right up there at the Needmas farm. I will say this to you, Mr. Speaker, that Agro Processing is an important unit whereby individuals can be trained into developing value-added products. This is evident in the various byproducts that can be produced at the unit, such as banana and pumpkin flour, jams, dried fruit, and beverages. We intend to raise the standard of operation after the upgrade is done to ensure that we are creating a better and more harmonious work environment, and so that would lead to increased production. Mr. Speaker, moving right along, one of the strategic objectives that will be addressed and encouraged in the coming year is youth and women in agriculture. Youth and women in agriculture. International bodies such as the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, have carried out extensive work on promoting and engaging women and youth in agriculture. This can be achieved by the introduction of agricultural entrepreneurship. The aim is to increase an atmosphere ripe with agribusinesses that are spearheaded by our young men, young women, and also women in general. The ministry intends to offer assistance to groups through training programs, workshops, and scholarships to assist in the development and empowerment of our youths and our women, as I said. The benefits to be derived are: 1, empowering individuals to become entrepreneurs. 2, increase income resulting in better livelihoods. 3, contribution to a gross domestic product. And 4, increase in small businesses. These are exciting plans, Mr. Speaker, and we will just have to ensure that what we say here today is what we'll accomplish in the year to come. Mr. Speaker, moving right along, I want to touch quickly on the Basti Fisheries Complex, Mr. Speaker. I will say to you that the Fish Products Division, which is at the Basti Fisheries Complex, will continue to provide fresh local fish to the general public. Mr. Speaker, about a month or just over a month ago, we had some challenges there. I want to say to the general public that we have eliminated those challenges. We had some issues with fish poisoning here in the Federation. We did the necessary research, investigation, and testing. As a matter of fact, we'd have sent samples all the way to New Jersey to have them tested, and the results were received. And based on those results, we are confident that the practices that we have here in that industry is sound. And I say that to say this: it appears that somehow fish that should not have been in our food system would have entered our food system. We have eliminated that because we have a new process in place whereby, let's start by saying, 1, we would have cleaned up the complex, the Basti Fisheries Complex. Whatever supplies we had there, we would have removed. So when we reopened just over a week ago, we reopened with new standards, new environment, clean and healthy, wholesome environment. And of course, there are systems in place now where we can trace where these fish would have come from. Meaning, Fisherman A comes into the complex. As a matter of fact, before we start, that fisherman has to be given a permit from the Department of Marine Resources in order to do business with the complex. So Fisherman A comes in with his fish. That is logged, documented. His fish will not be mixed with Fisherman B. So in essence, what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, when you go there, you see fish here, you know, we would know, or the personnel who are there at the complex would know exactly who they came from. So there is a system whereby you can trace if there is any difficulty. It never existed before, and I want to commend the Permanent Secretary, the Director of Marine Resource, Mr. Mark Williams as well, for their effort in order to clean up the process so that our consumers can be confident of what they're consuming. We had an arrangement with the Rams supermarket. Because of the challenge, we would have had to meet with them and give them some reassurances. And I want to say to you, and I want to welcome them back on board. I'm not so sure if they have started it yet, but I would want them to continue doing business with the Basti Fisheries Complex because, like I said before, people are eating more healthy food products now that are grown locally, caught locally, or whatever the case might be. So I want to encourage our local supermarkets to stand by us. We'll stand by them because we have done what is necessary to clean up some of the difficulties that were there. And I am confident that going into 2021, we'll see those improvements that we attempted to make will unfold, and then of course we'll see the true results of that, in that our fisher folks will benefit in terms of the sales that they will have with the Basti Fisheries Complex, and then the ultimate sale of those fish products to Ram Supermarket and any other who would come on board, and then our consumers will be even more confident because of our efforts. So those difficulties, I can say to you, Mr. Speaker, have been eliminated, and I'm happy to report that. But at least we had a press release some weeks ago indicating what has been done, and of course giving that general feeling of comfort to our consumers. Mr. Speaker, still sticking with the complexes here on St. Kitts, meaning the Basti Fisheries Complex, I want to just touch quickly on the Old Road Fisheries Complex. I will say to you that the Old Road Fisheries Complex will encounter some significant improvement in its facility during 2021. The The breakwater wall that was under construction will be completed, and there will be some extension to the jetty that is there. That would ensure that at least there's additional docking space for fishing vessels at Old Road. I believe the Minister for Infrastructure, member for St. Christopher 5, would have indicated that with the efforts of his ministry and also the contractor, these works would be done within the year 2021. Mr. Speaker, like I said, I was given a lot of information, so I don't think I can cover all, but I'm going through and picking out some of the major information that is before us. I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, this is a most important thing that I cannot sit down without saying. In Nevis, we would have activated or re-established the Agriculture Advisory Committee. Now, we have done so here in St. Kitts within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, about 3 weeks ago. The Agriculture Advisory Committee, now what this committee is mandated to do, the Agriculture Advisory Committee will, among other things, advise the Ministry on agriculture, including land use, economic development matters with respect to agriculture, and on other issues that will impact agriculture in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, years ago, in Nevis, I can speak of this because I'm familiar with the Agriculture Advisory Committee. That committee would have advised the Nevis Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Nevis, as to various crops that can be grown, various crops that we have a comparative advantage in, and of course that would have worked well when even the Nevis model was established, the one that was spoken about by UE and many other institutions in the Caribbean. It was a model where other countries would have sought to emulate. And I say it this way because that model would have created a business environment among our farmers with, for example, the Four Seasons Resort. Farmers were not allowed to sell directly to Four Seasons. The marketed arm of agriculture would have been that hub through which goods were brought, and then the marketing division would have sold those products to Four Seasons. What that does, it prevents the haggling over prices, and then it prevents the bottleneck. But of course, there was a guaranteed market for farmers. We are trying to emulate something similar here in St. Kitts, whereby we have identified some crops that we will be asking our farmers or working with our farmers to produce, and then those produce products will be given a guaranteed market, guaranteed sale, because we would then have those sold to our supermarkets or hotels when they're up and running in full capacity, that is. So I believe that once we refine this particular venture, it will be to the benefit of all of our farmers. Now, there are subcommittees that have been formed coming out of that Agriculture Advisory Committee, and these subcommittees are formed to advise on the targets to be met in crop and meat production. These subcommittees will assist with the implementation of plans for the agriculture and food sector, assist with the development of agricultural policies to enhance land use and compatibility, assist with our agriculture education initiative, and raise agricultural awareness and other matters such as the public market in terms of what work need to be done there, and also continued work at Bayford as well. Mr. Speaker, I will say to you that there are exciting times ahead in this sector, both in fisheries and crop and livestock farming. And we are repositioning ourselves for enhance and improve food production ahead. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources are putting programs in place which will be aligned to the government's commitment to a stronger and safer future. I want to just put this in front of that particular theme or motto, Mr. Speaker. If I may be permitted to, I'll say this to the mover of the bill, that I just want to add. We are going to keep the momentum to ensure a safer, a stronger future. We're going to keep the momentum to ensure a stronger and safer future. That sounds good, I believe.
Yes. Yes, very.
Sounds powerful, as a matter of fact. So can I repeat it again?
Yes.
We will keep the momentum to ensure a stronger and safer future here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Why turn back? There's no need to turn back. We're moving ahead. Mr. Speaker, I believe on the adjournment I'll get a chance to wish my constituents and everyone a Merry Christmas. So I won't do that now. But I want to say to you at this point in time, in closing, I want to thank my permanent secretary, Mr. Ron Dublin Collins. Ever since I've met with Ron, Mr. Collins, he has bought into what we have put on the table in terms of where we want to take agriculture. And I want to commend him for that, because I cannot do it on my own. Yes, I'm the minister, but the minister can only do so much. So you have to get the permanent secretary, the director, Mr. Melville James, the CVO, Dr. Tracy Challenger, Director of Marine Resources, Mr. Mark Williams, all of the supervisors, all of the workers in the Ministry and Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources. We have to get everyone on board and solicit their support to make sure this thing will work. And I am confident that they have bought into what this administration has been preaching. I want to commend them. It will not be an easy road ahead. Let's admit to that. But of course, with the right attitude, the right temperament, and the commitment to working hard, we'll get the job done. So in 2021, God spare life, I hope I'm back here to report on the glorious results of 2021, because, as I said before, exciting times are ahead. I feel confident, the move of the bill feel confident, the whole administration feel confident that agriculture can be in a position to be our savior moving forward. Mr. Speaker, I can go on, but I'll leave it there for now. I want to lend my support to this bill, my full support, fullest support, unwavering support to this bill, Mr. Speaker, and wish a safe passage through this honorable house. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.